You know, sometimes technology feels like a curse. I mean, back in the days, a car key was simple. You put it in, turn it on, and the car was ready to go. But nowadays we have this, a fully electronic key that only has to be close to the car to let you drive away. And to be fair, this is very convenient and probably a lot safer than the old school metal key. But if you're like me and you lose one of your two keys and then find out that replacing it can cost hundreds of euros, suddenly this fancy technology becomes a lot less fun. And then I also noticed it is not just my car key. I also have remotes for my garage door, my blinds, and even some important LED lights. And if I lose them, I am in trouble. All of them do basically the same thing. They send out invisible radio signals through the air, and the receiver turns those commands into an action. So that made me wonder, can I simply capture those signals, save them, and replay them later, basically creating my own backup remote? Well, today we're going to find out. We will start with something simple and then slowly move over to something a lot more serious, like a car key. Let's get started!
This video is sponsored by JLC PCB. If you need a prototype PCB or even a more serious production run, JLC PCB can manufacture multi-layer boards quickly and with proper quality control. They offer things like free via-in patch, which can save routing space and sometimes even reduce the numbers of layers you need. You can also choose ANIC finish, impedance control, AOI inspection and electrical testing for reliable results. And if your project needs more than just bare PCBs, the whole ecosystem is in one place. Design in easy EDA, order PCBs, source components, add a stencil or PCB assembly, and get an instant quote. And 6-layer boards can be built in as little as 48 hours. So check the link below to get JLC PCB coupons today. Now firstly we have to see what the remotes are actually sending out. And for that I will be using this Adam Pluto SDR, aka a software defined radio. Basically any SDR should do the job here. It only needs to come with at least one input and one output, and it needs to cover a frequency range in which pretty much all RF remotes operate in. So after plugging mine into a computer, I firstly downloaded the SDR Angel software and launched it. There I then selected my board as an input and adjusted the frequency range to 868 MHz, which I wanted to start with. And luckily for me, most of my remotes use that frequency, including my cheap LED remote, my blind opener remote and my garage door remote. Only for my car key I had to switch to the 433 MHz region to find it. So these are the frequencies we're dealing with. And what I showed you before on the screen is a so-called spectrum analyzer with activated waterfall feature. What this does is pretty simple. Horizontally we have the frequency, vertically we have time, and the brighter the color gets, the stronger the RF signal was there. So whenever I press a button on the remote, I see a short burst appear on the waterfall, which is basically the command the remote sends out. What was immediately noticeable about this specific burst was that it seems to turn on and off rapidly. And that is no wonder, because all sent out RF signals are basically only binary data consisting of ones and zeros. To represent them, a remote can for example quickly turn on and off its signal, which is called on-off keying or OOK, and that is exactly what this simple remote is doing. Other methods include changing the frequency to represent 1 and 0, which is what we have also seen before with the other remotes. There are by the way lots more modulation methods, but we will skip them here. We will also skip this SDR Angel software for now, because even though it is great for finding a frequency, it does not really tell us what the data here is. For that, however, we can use the Universal Radio Hacker software to investigate wireless protocols like a boss. After installing that, I started the software and firstly wanted to record my signal. So after putting in the most essential settings that we partly discovered before, I hit record, pushed the button on the remote that dims my LEDs, and after successfully getting that, stopped recording. Now with the software, we could analyze the heck out of the signal, but before doing any of that, I want to replay the just captured raw signal. This is possible because my SDR also comes with a transmit port. So after setting everything up, I hit send and nothing happens. My LED receiver apparently ignores the signal, even though it should be the exact same from the remote, which works just fine. At this point I was very confused and basically spent an entire day trying to figure out why this would not work. At the end I used the second SDR to see what the first SDR is sending out, and then referencing that to the remote, and as you can see, it looks like it should work just fine. I mean, what the hell, this is the cheapest RF remote you can use and I'm not able to clone it. I felt a bit defeated, but I had another idea in the form of a notorious gadget that is known for causing quite a bit of trouble, the Flipper Zero. Now truth be told, this thing is not as powerful as an SDR, but it makes working with signals super simple and more dumbed down. Perfect for me. So I recorded the 868 MHz signal with this thing as well, and immediately replayed it. And as you can see, that also didn't do anything. Out of desperation, I started the frequency analyzer function. And would you look at that, the RF remote seems to use 433 MHz, and not 868 like I thought before. And yeah, the on-off keying is also visible at exactly 433.8 MHz. But why also at 867.6? My theory here is that the higher frequency is a harmonic, because it is exactly 2 times the lower frequency. Great black magic RF prank. But anyway, let's forget about this and do the recording with 433 MHz and replay it. And hallelujah, it finally works with both the flipper and the SDR. Only problem is that I don't want either of these expensive devices to control my cheap LEDs. So luckily for us, the flipper stored the recorded raw data on an SD card that I now simply need to send out on my own to dim my LEDs. For that I got myself an ESP32C3 and an CC1101 dev board, which is by the way the same RFIC inside the flipper. After wiring them up on a small perf board like shown in this wiring scheme, I can use a ready-to-use library to basically let the ESP broadcast my RF signal through the CC1101 IC. And that seems to work lovely. But to add a bit more comfort, I included some MQTT code in the ESP32 and then created a button in Home Assistant to send out the fitting MQTT payload. And bada boom bada bang, I can now control my LED strip from everywhere in the world. And while this is already pretty cool, I would say, I was curious whether this technique would also work with my other remotes. So I once again scanned their frequency just to be sure, copied their signal and then replayed that. As you can see, this method didn't work at all, since no device reacted, even while trying all the given modulation methods of the Flipper Zero. This time we can use the radio hacking software again to understand what is going on. And when we have a look at the same signal sent out multiple times and analyze the bit streams, then we can see that the data does change every time. This was not the case with the simple RF remote that always sent out the same data. The reason for that could be that our more advanced remotes use a rolling code system. To put it as simple as possible, this system sends over an ID, an encrypted authorization code, and the command. Now the authorization code is created by encrypting a rolling code with a master key, and as the name would suspect, this rolling code goes up whenever you press a button on your remote. That makes such a system pretty secure, because the car, or whatever, does not react to old recorded codes, since the rolling code keeps going up, altering the authorization code. To prove this theory, I captured the RF signals from my remotes while they were not in reach of their devices, so that the device's rolling code would not go up. Then I replayed them near them, and sadly and unexpectedly, nothing happened. The problem this time though was the flipper, because it is not nearly precise enough to capture these complicated signals. So I tried this experiment again with my SDR. And yeah, my car reacts one time and only one time to my recorded signal, meaning it uses rolling codes. The only big problem though is that if you crack the system, then your new copied remote basically takes the spot of your old remote, because the rolling code keeps going up and eventually your old remote will be desynced and thus useless. This was actually a comment I found quite often under such RF copying videos on YouTube. So overall, this turned out a lot more complicated than I initially anticipated. And of course, the outcome is not perfect. But this is what reality looks like, and in the end, it is good to have such security in place. One last tip from me though, I keep all my car keys in this Faraday cage, so that no RF signal can get in or out, because there's no bulletproof security system out there. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something new. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Stay creative, and I will see you next time!